MLA can continue to support its members to help them find and use resources that make this case. It can sponsor. We haven't done much in the way of sponsoring research directly by the association. That's another thing that we're talking about in this context of the association future. You know, how do you correctly evaluate information resources in terms of their impact on health and well-being? How do you, along with how you evaluate services and libraries and all sorts of things. And I think that's an area that the association could take a role in, but that's going to be a long-term answer. It's not going to step up and directly address the point that you're raising. I think the other thing is I'm not concerned as much about discarding print materials if you have the information in another format, because it's the content and not the container, as we always say, that's important. And if having something electronically means that a student or faculty member or physician will use it because they can get to it easily, as opposed to having it in print and they're never going to walk over to the library and pick it up, then I think we have to do what we have to do to make that information as widely available and as easily accessible as possible. So that's my answer.
Okay, the drug was cortisone, sorry.
Yes. Yes, and cortisone itself has long-term health effects, but.
I have a question. Speaking of electronic resources, is MLA...
Can I pass the microphone to you?
Oh, thank you. Actually loud enough, but catch up your ears now. So speaking of electronic resources, does MLA have like a lobbying wing or some type of activities to influence vendors because of just how prohibitive the costs are and the sneaky things they do to keep out parts of like graphs or images or addendums from the electronic resources, and then we're kind of in this bind where we're telling our users, hey, look at, we've got all these great electronic resources, and then they go in there and they can't see a certain aspect of an article or chapters in a book.
By law, what MLA can do in that area is limited. There are provisions, I will say, as an individual, this aspect of the law makes no sense to me, but as librarians, as libraries, we can't band together to negotiate with publishers in the sense of a boycott or trying to pressure them on prices or anything like that. It's just simply illegal. And MLA as an association can only play a very limited role in any type of negotiations with publishers. And that's, you know, I've talked to many people who are lawyers and who are specifically antitrust lawyers, and they just say, you know, it may not make any sense to you, but that's what the law is. You can't do it. And so that's where we are.
Hi. Getting back to the clinical librarian role, or the role where librarians are kind of more at morning reports or grand rounds and that kinds of things. I've been at some of those, and the residents really appreciate, the physicians really appreciate having you there. But at some level, I always feel a little bit uncomfortable because I don't have the science background. I don't have the medical background, even though I've worked in hospitals for a very long time. Do you see MLA, or do you envision MLA maybe helping in some way to support that kind of role, say through some kind of education?
Well, we have, I think over the years, we've had different types of courses in the continuing education catalog, some of which have addressed those issues. It ebbs and flows, and the courses that are offered are pretty much determined by the membership. If we're offering a course and people don't sign up for it, we stop offering it. And if we hear from the members in our surveys, particularly after the annual meeting, that they'd like to see a course in a particular area, then we would be likely to look for an instructor in that area. certainly giving the feedback that this is something that's needed and of interest, I think would be a good thing to get that back on the association's radar. The other thing is there are education opportunities that aren't through MLA. I probably shouldn't say that, but there are, and I think you have to look and take advantage of those as well. Because, you know, it's an association, it doesn't move at lightning fast speed, and if you need that knowledge now, and we're going to have a course in 2 years, then you might want to think about what other alternatives there are.
Again.
Also, at Johns Hopkins, they're offering a course to librarians to work with doing grand rounds, and actually you're actually participating in all the classes that first-year medical students are doing. So I think that was a really innovative program.
I have a question about the naming of the librarians. I have seen this a lot on different listservs where a librarian is asking members, so what other names can you give for a librarian? How should they describe themselves? And I guess it's part of the marketing scheme. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think the work you do is more important than what you call yourself. I hear arguments on both sides, and it may turn out to be another one of those things that will be determined institution by institution. I hear people who feel very strongly that the library means something and that in their institution, the people they work with understand that the library has changed and they no longer think of it as a repository of print materials with somebody sitting at a desk waiting for you to come in and ask a question. And I know I've talked to people in other institutions who say that just having the name library means people tune out the minute they start talking, and so that they need to look for a different title. Personally, you know, we still call ourselves a library at Michigan. And part of that is we're part of the university library, so it's kind of hard to call yourself anything else. But I think, you know, I guess my answer is I don't know. I don't know if it makes a difference other than institution by institution. I think as an association, MLA should be thinking about whether it's just a library association or if perhaps it has a wider purview in the area of health information. Are we just medical librarians, or are we a broader subject field? People feel very strongly, as I found out in conversations at MLA annual meetings, there are people who are passionate that this is the name of the association and it shouldn't be changed. But I don't think there's ever harm in raising the question and having a discussion about it. And you know, 5 years from now, we'll be in a different information world, a different healthcare world. We don't want to wait that 5 years to be thinking about what our name should be in 5 years.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I really do think it's a great time to be in this profession. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of people doing really, really good work. And, so we should just celebrate them, do our best, and build that future together. Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you.